Hey everyone. I just was thinking today that it would probably be a good idea for me to make a video kind of updating everybody about where I'm at with my mental health. Even kind of talk a little bit about how I got here from what I can kind of, look back on anyways. There's always more to mental health than meets the eye, and it's probably been a lot longer than I've thought leading up to it. But I wanted to share my journey. I think that that's something that's really important. I'm not sharing my journey to try to get pity. I'm a really strong person. I'm taking all of the right steps to get myself healthy again. But I want to share my journey because my experience so far of sharing my journey has been empowering to an extent, and it's made me realize, though I did know before, that the more people talk about mental health, the more we can eliminate stigma and that sort of thing. But I didn't realize how much talking about my journey would help others open up about theirs. I have had so many people message me and thank me for sharing and letting myself be vulnerable, and give how much that has given them the courage to do the same. And like I said, if we're not talking about mental health and we're just letting it hide in the background, we're not servicing anyone. We're not servicing ourselves. We're not servicing the public. So that's why I'm doing this. So anyways, I'm going to start off a little bit telling you about my journey. And though I'm sure, like I said, it's been going on for longer than I can even recollect, I realize now that for a long time that I can recollect how much I've denied my own mental health. So, for too long. And that's how I got here, to an extent. I can look back now and I can see all of these depression patterns and anxiety patterns, and I can look back at specific times and be like, man, I was totally dealing with depression then. How did I not see it? How did I let it go? I mean, I work in mental health. I'm educated in mental health. How do you let that just go? And I just continued to kind of ignore it and push through it. And I guess at the time, maybe it wasn't that severe. And so I was able to push through it. Whether I did it in a healthy manner or an unhealthy manner, I couldn't really say. I think it was a bit of both. I do remember a specific incident that happened. It was a period of a few months where I did sleep a lot. And that was definitely not necessarily a healthy reaction to the stress that I was dealing with. Anyways, I didn't recognize it at the time. But I ended up going through some changes, and this is how it led me to getting where I am now and recognizing the issues I was having with mental health. So I started a new job in mental health, and with that, I recognized that I needed to practice some self-care, but I didn't know what that actually meant. I knew that self-care was important when you're putting all of your energy into somebody else's mental health, and you really have to kind of step back from your own mental health while you're in those situations with them. But you need to go home then and take care of yourself. And so I knew that, but it was more so I didn't start taking care of my self-care unless I really felt like I needed it. And what I've learned now is that self-care isn't to be done on a when I need it basis. You need to do self-care every single day, or it doesn't work. It's not the same. And so what ended up happening for me is my whole life, I have been that person that everybody turned to for advice, that when they were feeling upset, they knew I would be a good listener. They would call me up and be like, hey, I've got all this stuff going on. Can you talk? And I'd always be the person to say, absolutely. I wanted to be everybody's rock. That's what, to me, that's how I identified myself. And part of a huge struggle for me now is that I've had to learn how to step back from that. And I don't know who I am outside of that, because it's what I've done my whole life. So I've always like, if you were to ask me, who is Haley? I would say, I'm the person that you can trust, that's gonna have your back. I will be your rock, or I would be your rock. That I would give you the shirt off my back, that I literally would put the weight of your world on my shoulders to take it off of you. That's always been the person I've been. And so how do I now figure out how to identify myself when I physically, mentally cannot do it? So what happened essentially is I took so long worrying about other people and other emotions and ignoring my own, or just setting my own aside, that I became an empty vessel. How do you fill somebody else's cup if you don't have anything to fill it with? That was where I was at. I literally got to a point where I had nothing left to give. And that was terrifying for me. And it took actually a fight with my husband for me to even realize that. I spent so long hurting and denying that I was hurting because I was more worried about protecting other people's feelings. I wanted to be my husband's rock. And I didn't want him to ever see me as weak. I didn't want anyone to see me as vulnerable. That's not how I was. But I've really learned to value vulnerability. Because if we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable and show vulnerability, then we're not servicing ourselves. And I was not servicing myself by hiding my emotions and denying them. So we had this fight, and I woke up the next morning and I had so much anxiety. Up until this point, I'd kind of been able to do some breathing techniques or whatever, things that I had learned on the job to get through it, and I couldn't. I ended up hyperventilating. It was the first time I had ever hyperventilated. I had to go lay in the bathtub and do meditations because it was the only place that I felt safe. It was the only place that I felt like I could shut my brain down. And it was the only place that was quiet. And it was small. And I felt secure. And I was terrified. I had never, ever had my mental health get away on me like that before. And that was the day that I recognized, oh my God, I need help. So without even talking to my husband, I reached out to a counselor that day and I said, please help me. I was exhausted. I literally had nothing left. All I wanted to do was cry. It was terrifying. I didn't recognize the person I looked at in the mirror. And it took that one fight for me to realize that. It just was like a rock bottom. So anyways, where have I gone from there? So I started seeing, obviously, a counselor. I started seeing a physician. I went on antidepressants. I've increased my dose one time with recognition that it wasn't doing what it needed to do. Many people try multiple antidepressants before they find the one that works or find a dosage that works. It's very much trial and error. Fortunately for me, I feel like the first one that I've tried is making a difference with the dose increase. I am on the verge of considering another increase. However, I also just started a new medication to help me with sleep. When your sleep hygiene is out of whack, everything about your life is out of whack. And so I go from one extreme to another. I will wake up in the morning and still feel exhausted almost every single morning, whether or not I slept a full night or I've slept 14 hours or whatever. So either I go to bed and I don't sleep and I'm exhausted because of that, or I have to sleep 14 hours and I still don't feel rested. So she's given me this medication to help me regulate that. I haven't been that consistent with it yet, so I can't really give you an update on how that's going. I'm really hoping that it will help me to get a better sleep routine, and that it'll help to quiet my brain down, because that's what I find a lot of the time is if I go to bed, I cannot shut my brain off. Doesn't have to be negative thoughts. Don't know if you've seen those memes on Facebook about like the people who think about what they had an argument about 5 years ago and how that could have been better or whatever. So anyways, okay, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm trying to figure that out. I have a lot better days than I have in the past. There's definitely a difference with the medication that I'm on. I still have bad days, for sure. But I do have more good days. So anyways, that's kind of my journey up until now. And this video is already getting really long. So I kind of want to talk to you about self-care. Okay, sorry, I had to stop the video. So I want to chat with everybody about self-care, get a little bit more in depth about it, because my whole goal here is to be kind of an advocate for mental health. I want to share my journey so that other people will continue to be encouraged to open up themselves. I want to start a conversation about mental health, and I want to offer people things that have worked for me. Obviously everybody has different things that work for them. That's okay. But I definitely want to open up the conversation and give some tips and tricks and techniques so that people have some things in their back pocket. I've been really fortunate enough in my life that I have an education background on this. So unlike a lot of people, a majority of people who deal with anxiety and depression, I already have some tools in my back pocket. And I've been struggling. So I can only imagine the people who don't have these tools. So that's what I'm going to do over the next little bit. I will keep posting some videos over the next few days. So stay tuned. And hopefully this will help to achieve some of the things I'd like to. Obviously, I still want to help people, but I have to do it in a different capacity. I'm still not ready to go back to work. I would not be able to manage my emotions well enough to set them aside long enough. Like, I'm still an empty vessel. But by doing this, creating videos, telling my story, telling what things are working for me, even just like offering different suggestions to help tailor it to other people, those are things that I can do that service me. Obviously, it's really nice to be able to care for other people still, but it doesn't sacrifice me at the same time. So anyways, that's enough for today. Stay tuned for some self-care videos, and love you all, and I hope your day is beautiful and filled with happiness.